Hey, what's up, brand builders? How's it going? Okay, so one of the most kind of common questions that I get from aspiring entrepreneurs and brand builders is the question of brand name. So typically it will be like, okay, we are launching or we want to launch this type of business in this market segment. What kind of a name would you recommend? Now, of course, it's an innocent question, but it's not something that I can just simply answer via an email. I can't just simply say, yeah, use this, right? So what I decided to do was just a quick video to explain the importance of brand name. And I will do a separate video on the whole process of coming up with the perfect brand name. But in this video, it's just about the do's and don'ts of picking a brand name, right? Now, when you're building a brand, and once you've built a brand, a lot of things can change, right? Your product can change, your service can change, your target audience can slightly change maybe, or sometimes can change drastically. Your company philosophy can change, your outlook can change, the market segment can change, lots of things. In fact, even the brand identity can change. In fact, you've seen like over the years, even the big brands, they tweak their logo, or they change their logo, or they change their identity, their color palette, and so on and so forth. But you know, the one thing that cannot be changed, or rather technically cannot be changed, and if changed would lead to disaster or at least like a rebirth, is the brand name. Right? We've seen so many brands, like which of them have you seen change their name and then continue doing the same thing? No, if they change their name, that means it's a new brand, right? It's a new business, or so on and so forth. So it's such an important thing, and yet I see a lot of entrepreneurs and brand builders really rush through the process of the brand name. It's usually like there's no structured process, right? It's quite arbitrary. It's based on guesses, assumptions, preferences, and yeah, it sounds cool, or I like it, or it's yeah, because this is my service, I'm gonna call it this. Sometimes it's the area, which is okay. I mean, that's a whole separate thing. But there's no structure there, and it's usually very rushed, right? Because the entrepreneur or the founder wants to quickly get on with the other more interesting things. Even the identity is not really paid attention. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, let's just get a logo done and then let's move on. But the brand name is something that's going to stick with you, your brand, for almost the rest of its life, right? Technically, the rest of its life. And it has a lot of impact. In fact, brand names determine about 30 to 40% of kind of brand recall, the trust, at least initially, right? It makes sense. And I was just talking in another video, and I heard this somewhere. If you want to know the importance of a brand name, right, or a name and how people respond to names, someone was saying that spend a day introducing yourself as Jesus, or something like that, right, and see the reactions. So yes, names have a lot of impact on how a brand is perceived. So my recommendation would be that you don't just arbitrarily try and come up with a name, but rather step back and start with the brand strategy. If you already have a brand strategy, then of course you would know that coming up with a brand name is actually informed by the brand strategy, because the brand strategy, the positioning strategy, you get to understand your target audience more than typically where you think you know your target audience, right? Your potential customers. Because you need to really dig deep. You need to understand the customer journey. You need to understand the buyer persona, the customer avatar, and so on and so forth. And the brand strategy also comes up with the story framework, the brand story framework, the positioning, the messaging, and the message blocks and things like that. So once you do that, that will then inform the brand name. What kind of a brand name would make sense? You don't need to really guess. You just need to let the strategy inform you. And that way, you can be assured that your brand name is going to work for your brand rather than just be forced upon it, right? Of course, if you don't like it, then that's a different thing. But then, of course, you should bring your preference into the equation while you're being informed by the strategy. And the same thing goes with the brand identity. Rather than just going for an arbitrary identity, it might have a bit of meaning to it, but yeah, you like it or it looks beautiful. Rather than that, by starting with the brand strategy, your identity would be also informed. Not just identity, your marketing campaigns, your brand tone and brand voice, what you say, how you are perceived, the personality, all these things. So always start with the brand strategy and let that inform your brand name. Do not rush your brand name and do not make arbitrary decisions, because you might end up regretting. Once your brand picks up, you have customers, and things are moving along. If you start to realize that your brand name is really becoming a kind of a liability, it's becoming a hindrance, then you'll be stuck. It'll be very difficult to change at that stage. So start today. If you haven't already done so, start today to first work out your brand strategy and let the brand name come from that. And I will do another video on the entire process of coming up with a perfect brand name. And just subscribe to this channel, click on the bell icon so that when I do that video, you'll be informed. All right, till my next video, take care.